It is a distinct pleasure for me to introduce our distinguished guest today, Geraldine Laybourne. Geraldine, who goes by Jerry, uh, received her bachelor's degree in art history from Vassar College, which is also the college I went to. I left India to get a liberal arts education, and Vassar College opened up my mind in ways that I could never have foreseen. And then she went on to get an MS degree in elementary education from the University of Pennsylvania. So you see, she's always been interested in education, and I think she really is very interested in being involved with our students in our program. She has been a pioneer in creating innovative and high quality television programming for children, mostly for children, also for women, and for everyone. She led the team that created Nickelodeon and Nick at Night in the 1980s and 1990s, which I'm not a media person, but I know enough to know that Nickelodeon and Nick at Night are huge, huge. She was president of Disney ABC Cable Networks from 1996 to 1998, and I don't need to explain to you what that means. Those are huge corporations with massive impact on hundreds of millions of people through media. She's also very entrepreneurial. She co-founded Oxygen Media, which I remember when Oxygen Media came out, there were a lot of young women, students, who really looked up to her. And because Oxygen Media was targeted at women, she also co-founded Catapult Studios. She's been really honored for her contributions to the television industry. She was ranked #1 among the 50 most influential women in the entertainment industry by The Hollywood Reporter in 1996. Hollywood Reporter is a industry newspaper, and named one of the 25 most influential people in America by Time Magazine, also in 1996. She sits on many boards, including Semantic, a company that many of you would have heard of, BetaWorks, and Nine Story, which is an animation company, and Vital Voices. I met Jerry when we both served together on the Vassar College Board of Trustees, and I can tell you that she is an inspiration to everyone she meets. And most importantly, she has been a great mentor to many, many people in the media industry. And I know from testimonials how she has really changed the lives of many people who started in junior positions working with her, and who she mentored to really rise to very important positions. So please join me in welcoming Jerry Laybourne.
Jamshed, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm so thrilled to be here, and I can't wait to get there in person. Neha is going to put something in the chat. Don't look right this second, but I don't know if you are following what's happening in the United States, but it's not very pretty. There's a lot of name calling and terrible stuff. And if you heard about the debate, which was not a debate between our president and Vice President Biden, it was very concerning. So I decided this morning I would name my address Names I've Been Called. And now Neha has put the names I've been called in the chat bar. And the reason I have it in the chat bar is because one of these names.
Jerry, I think your network isn't too good.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You can't hear me?
I can hear Jerry fine.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, I think
It's fine.
Same here.
Yeah, it's fine.
I
Okay.
can hear and see her fine. Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the names I've been called. I've been called disruptive, friendly, only creative, passionate, not financially driven, stupid, brilliant, exacting, naive, empathetic, loony, tough, nurturing, protective, collaborative, sweetie, and another name that rhymes with itch, visionary, ahead of my time, failure, success, worrier, and warrior. Now, I want to say that in that list is one name that I do not relate to. Every other word there I do relate to and I do accept. But can anybody guess the word that I don't relate to?
Stupid.
No, I relate to that. I definitely.
Something that writes with itch.
Nope, I can also relate to that word.
Failure.
What?
Failure.
No, I relate to that.
Not driven by financials.
I relate to that.
Loony.
Creative.
What? No, I relate to that.
Warrior.
No, I am a warrior. Yes! Who said sweetie?
me, Anand.
You are right. I do not relate to sweetie. I just don't. And thank you. But I thought I would organize my thoughts around this because how is it possible that I'm both disruptive and friendly and stupid and brilliant? And I thought I've never done this before, so please bear with me. If it gets tedious or boring, we'll just go to questions. And I may not get to all the words, so if you have a favorite word in that list, or if you want to call me another name, please help yourself. I'll see if I can relate to it, but don't have it be in the sweetie, girly, lady. Don't have it be in that realm, okay? So disruptor or disruptive, I think the reason I've been somewhat of a success is because I am a disruptor and I come by it naturally. I'm a second child squeezed in between two sisters, one perfect and beautiful and the other brilliant and charismatic. So I had to be disruptive, otherwise I wouldn't have gotten any attention. But you'll notice that most big businesses like Amazon or Facebook or Google or Apple all came about because somebody was disruptive and they had ideas that things, the way that they were going, were not good enough. I went to Vassar, as John said, and the first lesson at Vassar is go to the source. Don't take anybody else's word for it. Go to the source and question everything. And so for me, Vassar was a perfect fit. I have no real interest in following anybody. I like to know all the rules. I like to study the field, and I like to hear what everybody says is conventional wisdom. So when we started to build Nickelodeon, I'm a notebook kind of a gal. I write these notes in a notebook, and For instance, I had a really terrible boss when I first came to Nickelodeon, and he was my business school because I would write down what he did and then I would do the opposite. And so when you get out in the world and you're working for a terrible boss, I just say congratulations. The worse, the better, because you will learn by that, by fire. You see how distracted and how off the road somebody can get. So some of the conventional wisdom around Nickelodeon was programmed to boys, girls will watch anything. We did not believe that. We believed that boys would be interested in watching shows with girls at the center. And I don't know, did any of you ever see any Nickelodeon programming?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
A lot.
Yes.
Okay. So there was a show called Clarissa Explains It All, which is, you guys are too young for this, but it was a revolutionary show. Clarissa was a cool kid with a computer. In those days, nobody had computers. And her best friend was a guy named Sam. And we wanted to show kids that girls can be interesting. We didn't want to put girls in princess outfits or make them sweeties or fairies or princesses or whatever. So the flip side of that being a disruptor, so, I challenged everything. They told me that kids wouldn't watch the news. Our goal was to raise a better caliber of candidate. Pete Buttigieg is the first candidate that was ever raised on Nick News. I don't know if you've heard about him, but a very impressive guy. The other side of disruptor is friendly. And I found that because I genuinely like people and I genuinely can find something to like in almost anybody, that served me as well as being disruptive, because you need friends when you're out in the world and you need a team. And I was one of the few people in the programming industry who got to know the cable operators. And when I started Oxygen, having helped them build their businesses, they helped me. We got to 74 million homes when nobody was getting carriage anywhere. So I'm just saying, yes, on the idea side, I was disruptive and a disruptor, but also just a very friendly, accessible person. And you have to have that. So then let's go to passionate and not driven by financials, not financially driven. So I got to be known for being passionate about kids. And I am now in my retirement, and I'll tell you later about my most recent project, but I love kids. I love the way they think, their creativity, their promise. And my goal in life has been to bring them the best creative that would spark their own creativity and learning. And even though Nickelodeon looked like a ton of fun, there was a serious curriculum behind everything we did. We did not want to waste kids' time. We knew that developing a sense of humor at an early age was about the only thing that would predict their success in later life. And I'm wondering if you can see me. Yes. Everybody can hear? Yeah, okay. So one day, the head of NBC Sports called me and said, I didn't know him. Would I have lunch with him? Sure. And I went over and he said, I've just been offered to be the president of all of NBC, but I love sports, and I want to talk to you because I think you're passionate about what you do, and I don't know many people who are. And I just don't know if I should go and take the job or stay where I am. So he said, tell me why you're so passionate about kids. And I said, honestly, I'm passionate about everything. And that's something I really urge all of you to think about, because I was passionate about the mailroom. I was passionate about systems that got set up that were efficient. I was passionate about our budget. I was passionate about so many things. And honestly, my friend by the end, we were friends, and he didn't take the job. And he went on for the rest of his career to have his job and love his job. And I have to say that when I went to Disney, I wasn't as passionate because I wasn't on a mission, which I do much better if I have in my head why I want to do something. And I discovered, Jamshed said I was very entrepreneurial. I wasn't a very good executive. I didn't relate to Disney. There were a lot of patriarchal ideas and management, and it was very much top down. And I came from a place, I had no idea that I had no supervision at Viacom. They had a much different view. Now, I don't know if any of this is interesting. Are you interested in this, or should I move to something else? How are we doing?
No, I think we are fine.
Okay, good. So at Viacom, they had a philosophy that was called sink or swim. So if you met your goals, they didn't interfere with you. And the entire 16 years that I worked there, they only asked me 4 questions, because we did this thing that I also highly recommend, under promise and over deliver. And it was easy to do that in those years because nobody expected anything of Nickelodeon. We went from being just a break-even network to being worth $10 billion when I left. And, you know, that was pretty exciting. So at Disney, it was a very different story. They were worth, you know, billions and billions, and they expected people to fall in line. If you're a second child, you better be an entrepreneur. How many second children do we have here? Raise your hands, please. Just one? Wait. Let me see. How many? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, I can't see the hands of the people. If you are a second child, please write it in the chat. So are any of you second children thinking of working in a corporation? Come on, be honest. Okay, we got a lot of second children. So the first children,
Any suggestion on third childs?
excuse me?
Any suggestion on the third childs?
The third child kind of fits with the second. You're more like us than the first. How many first children do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Somebody's not sure. Okay. Well, just first children, you can really be good executives and you can be entrepreneurs too. But I don't know too many second children who have been drawn to being an executive. So anyway, little bit of craziness on my part. That's where loony comes in, because I can't, I'm also, sometimes I sound deadly serious, but I'm incredibly playful. And, you got to keep everybody on their toes. So let's go to, okay, so not financially driven. So many people in business are pressured into quarterly earnings and trimming their budgets, and they spend all their time trying to cut costs and be compliant. And I spent my life as a warrior trying to get my company, Viacom, to spend money on Nickelodeon. And every time they spent money, they got a gigantic return. And so I am not quarter by quarter financially driven. I am a builder. I'm a financial builder, not a financial engineer who tries to take costs out of a business.
Not a bean counter.
Not a bean counter. Although that, maybe that could be fun. I'd like to do that with my grandchildren someday. But I just think that, another thing I've been called often is naive. And I'll just give you an example of it. When we were about 10 years old, we were doing a lot of original production. And we were in studios in 5 different states. We had no home-based studio. And my friend Sarah Levinson and I sat around and I said, who needs us? We need a permanent studio. And she said, they're building this theme park in Orlando, Universal Studios, Florida. Let's call them up. So we called up the head of Universal Studios Florida. They were just starting their building. And I said, hey, if you build us 2 sound stages, which cost about $20 million, we'll come down there and produce shows. And the guy said, well, come down and talk to us. And he was very rude and didn't want to pay any attention to us. And he said, well, come back in 3 weeks with a plan. And so we listened hard to what he needed. He needed something that would be a marketing attraction to kids to get their parents to take them to Universal when they were visiting Disney World. Both of those parks are right in Orlando. And so about a month and a half later, we called him up and he said, why didn't you call me back in 3 weeks? And we said, well, you didn't sound very interested. And he said, well, I went home and I started watching Nickelodeon and I'm interested. And so my boss at the time knew Universal very well. They were very tough businessmen. And he said, you are so naive. They will never agree to this. You will never get this done. It will never be built. And I said, thanks for the vote of confidence. And we went into a negotiation with Universal. They had never done a partnership with anybody in my company. And we decided that we had 5 days to come to an agreement. And so we worked around the clock. And on the 4th day, the guy on the Universal side saw that I had some lint on my jacket and he picked the lint off my jacket. And I knew when he picked the lint off my jacket that we had a deal. Because who does that, right? You take care of your friends. And we did have a deal. It was fantastic. Nickelodeon had a headquarters, a world headquarters, where we had a slime fountain. And, it was just fantastic. So, naivete is a really great thing, especially if you want to be in a startup. Not knowing what you can't do is really fantastic. And so many times you'll hear in business, oh, we tried that, it doesn't work. Well, you know what? Your generation knows so much more about the future world than the people older than you. So, I guess my advice to you is to have opinions about everything and test them and try them out on people. And I did the commencement address at Vassar, and I gave the young people who were graduating a very tough message, which is your brains are never going to get any better than they are right now. Now it's just from now on, it's just downhill. So you better have your original thoughts between your 20s and your 30s, or you're not going to, be all you can be. So I'll just give you that. Okay, so does anybody, do you want to go back to that list and see if anybody has a something that you want to ask me that's on the list or something else?
Oh, ma'am. Hi.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi. I would like to ask you about empathetic. How did you fight being where you are, being empathetic? Because being a woman and fighting it out and at the same time being empathetic might have been difficult. So yes, I would like your views on that. Thanks.
Well, it's interesting. I had a management coach for many years, and she told me that you actually cannot be a good leader without being empathetic. And that was very enlightening to me. And I'll just show you how empathy fit into my career. So my first point of empathy was for the audience. And a lot of people in my position, television people, look down on their audience and they think they're stupid. And unfortunately, we in the United States have moved to a lot of stupid reality programming, and we've dumbed down people and we've dumbed down the audience. But I felt like if I understood where kids were and I could really listen to them and feel what they were thinking, that we would be able to communicate to kids how much we cared about them. And in fact, I would go to many, many, many different focus groups and just listen to how kids were talking. We would ask them questions like, what's it like being a kid? And they would come back with things, well, at least we're not teenagers. That's when your brains fall out. They were feeling pressured to grow up. And we had to listen to that to create a brand that gave them a childhood. Because in the 80s, women were going to work, kids were being left at home. There was no 24-hour kids network. It was most kids would come home and watch game shows or soap operas. And we needed to know where they were. And, right now, my empathy to kids is so profound because they don't have their friends, they aren't out playing, they're confined. But also empathy for my employees and for people I was selling to. I took I'm very interested in research and I'm very interested in testing. So I've taken every test. I have a very lopsided right brain, but I do have a little left brain. I am a ENTJ, which means commandant, but is subtitled commandant. And I'm way off the charts in empathy. And I am a terrible salesperson. So I learned that the only way I could sell was through my empathy. So I had to listen hard to what somebody was going to buy and then sell it to them. I did that at Universal. We created this audition process so kids would come to Orlando to audition because that's what he needed. He needed something that was a daily draw. So empathy is central to everything. And I don't believe that you really build a good business if you don't understand your customer, if you don't love your customer, and you don't really listen to your customer. And I think that men also have empathy. The funny thing is that in this 21st century, most of the desirable characteristics that you will hear in any kind of management lecture are female words. Team building, nurturing, empathetic, all these things. But men are moving. We're on a spectrum. We're not all women and we're not all men. We have a blend. And my thing is, I'm known for making sure that women get heard. And there is a phenomenon which guys, you want to turn around? I'm just going to talk to the women for a minute. I'm just kidding. There's a phenomenon in the United States, and I don't know if it happens in India, but whenever a new woman at Viacom came into the boardroom to join me, I was always the oldest and the first in, I would take them aside and I would say, here's what's going to happen. You're going to come in, you're going to say something, nobody's going to listen. I'm going to try to repeat what you said. Still nobody's going to listen. And then 10 minutes later, Mark is going to say the same thing and everybody's going to say, oh, how brilliant. So Sarah saw that happen. And and so we got very good at giving everybody credit. So what happens is men don't all get heard either. It's kind of the alpha male gets heard. And it's often the alpha male who knows the least. And the poor CEO who's removed from all the information by layers of people who put their own judgment on information, they're expected to make a decision. And so Sarah and I got very good at training the entire group to give credit to the people who were closest to the information. And that was often men, sometimes women, but having empathy allows you to see how others are being received. And if you're not spending time thinking about what you're going to say next, but actually listening to what the person said and trying to pick out what in that statement resonates with you and reinforce that, you'll make so much more progress than the standard. There's a management behavior that I noticed both at Viacom and at Disney, where the CEO likes to throw hardballs at his direct staff and see if he can catch them, not knowing the answer to something.
Excuse me, hardball is a baseball metaphor. In cricket, it would be like a Yorker at full pace.
You got pretty far with me not saying something that was ununderstandable. Thank you. So to me, I've also been accused of being ruthlessly kind, which I completely agree I am. But it's for a purpose. When I use the word ruthless, it's for a purpose. Why do we support other people's ideas? It's for the purpose of moving our venture forward. And, I'm beside myself in the United States right now because nobody is trying to work together. And it is scary. So, next word.
Hello. Can you hear me? I'm Mridul.
I can say, is it Myrtle?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I have heard everything very, very closely. and I am not able to wrap my head around with this word, something that rhymes with itch, if I have got it correctly, with
Yes.
all what you are saying currently. So I would like you to highlight something on that.
So even though if anybody got in my way for my purpose of creating something great for kids, for instance, there was a guy who wanted to turn Nickelodeon into an adult movie service. And everything I would say, he would take issue with and use the most filthy language. And he would be relentlessly calling me an itch. And I was to him because I couldn't be bothered with him. And I was not kind to him. And I'll tell you, this is how I earned itch. So one day, I'm sorry I can't say it with the combined B, but one day we were faced with a dilemma at MTV. So my company I was the vice chairman of MTV Networks. Nickelodeon was part of MTV Networks, which was part of Viacom. So one day we got an order for putting condoms on the network, on MTV. Now in those days, teen pregnancy was out of control. And I felt like it was the responsible thing to do. And in the early days of MTV, it was all music. It was very popular. I don't think it is popular at all now. And the head of ad sales, who was my nemesis, thought it would ruin his advertising environment. And it's like, hey, have you watched MTV? You know, that was pretty rough. And my boss, we bickered, and my boss said, okay, come back at 10 o'clock in the morning and we'll have a discussion. So I admit this is not nice, Myrtle, and I hate for you to think of me like an itch, but I went home and we were marketing green slime shampoo. So green slime was something that we used on Nickelodeon when any kid started to get too enamored of themselves. So we would slime them. So we created a shampoo called Green Slime Shampoo. Gets you clean, won't turn you green. And we had these little packets that were the same size as a condom. And it said, you can't do that on television, which was the name of the show, and then green slime shampoo. So I cut the bottoms off. I squeezed out the green slime. I sent my husband to the drugstore. I shoved condoms into it. I put tape on it. And I had 20 of these in my pocket. And I came into the room for the final argument. And I said, you know, Bob, I heard you. And I agree that if by the time our audience at MTV has gotten there, if they don't know about condoms, it's too late. So I've decided to do a direct merchandising program on Nickelodeon and sell, you can't do that on television, condoms on Nickelodeon. And I threw them on the table. That's how I earned the itch. That was not nice. But we got the condom advertising on MTV. Anything else? Any other?
Ma'am, hello.
Yes. Where are you? Hi.
Hi.
Prayal?
Priyal.
Priyal.
Yeah. So I had two questions. My first question is that your description says something that you relate to is disruptive and ahead of your time, but then there's also naive. So I feel, at least in this initial years of acceptance of this disruptiveness, there's always that naive element to it. Like you don't realize how hard it is to be a different person and go through. So how did you manage to implement it and pull it off for so many years? How did you deal with?
So I would say that, the reason I have stupid and ahead of my time and failure is that nobody's path is a straight success. And the naive part is part of why we do things. Most things that we do that are really worth doing are too hard to do. And with Nickelodeon, we nobody wanted our jobs. It wasn't a viable business. It was like we could afford to be naive. With Oxygen, it didn't serve us well. And it didn't serve us well because we were very high profile. And Oprah Winfrey was one of my partners. Does anybody know Oprah? Yeah. So we were on the front page of business magazines and everybody expected a lot of stuff from us. But still, I had this naive idea that we could do things differently. But our audience, by the time this was 2000, so cable had been around for 20 years, our audience wasn't easily shaped. We shaped our audience at Nickelodeon. We brought them along with us, but we wanted to be a convergent network. We did not want to be just another television network. But when we got launched in 2000, you remember there was an internet bubble burst, and we had the people who were investing in our company were investing because of the combination of television and internet. And many of the ideas we had in 2000 are now coming to fruition in 2020. So I'll just say that, it's just being a disruptor. If you're not a disruptor at the right time, we were a disruptor at the right time for kids. We were ahead of our time with Oxygen, and, it's just not that clear cut. It's not, it's the rewards of being a successful disruptor are immense. The safer route is to go with conventional wisdom and to emulate what other people are doing. I'm just not interested in that. I only lasted at Disney for 2 years and 6 months and 7 days. And I wouldn't let myself leave until we did some good things, but it wasn't, the word partner here that really is the most that I relate to is worrier and warrior. And that is, I wake up in the morning a warrior and I end the day as a worrier. Or, these days I sleep being a worrier and I try to wake up being a warrior. It's not so easy to go the path of being a disruptor. That's all I'm going to say. One day when I was on a plane in the middle of the launch of Oxygen, and we were in every paper, and I was going through our press on a plane, and a young man sitting next to me said, "Excuse me, but I can tell you're a highly successful business person. Can you tell me the quickest way to getting rich?" And I said, well, we were going from Los Angeles to New York, seatmates. And this also, Myrdal, I think, puts in the itch category. I looked at him and I said, the only thing I know for sure is that you will never be rich, because Oprah Winfrey did not set out to be rich. Marcy Carsey, my other partner, who is a brilliant television producer, did not set out to be rich. We had a mission. Oprah sees herself as an every person, and she has the most infinite empathy of anyone I know, and she can feel what the person in the audience wants to know. She never had a business plan for getting rich, and there is no quick way to getting rich. So I've always been much more effective if I have a mission. And right now, my mission is to fix early learning in the United States of America. And I've gone back to our college town, Poughkeepsie, New York, and I've been working there for 4 years to create a teacher training program for early childhood educators. And in our country, we have done a very bad job of supporting families. Only 10% of the child care in our country is considered high quality. We have no high quality child care in Dutchess County or in Poughkeepsie. So we have gotten the county to agree to build us a $7 million building. You might think about Universal Studios Florida. That was a very good lesson. The county needs to show that we are going to support children, and the best way to do that is right from the start. I don't know if you know about brain development in kids, but the years 0 to 3 are the most important. Between 1 and 2, their neural networks get set, and if they don't get reinforced by the time they're 3, they start to wither. So it's a national crisis. I'm pretty sure it's an international crisis. And, I figure I've got a few years left, and I got a lot of passion for kids, and I don't, I'm just using all of these things that all these names I've been called, and trying to figure it out.
Excuse me, ma'am. Good evening. I have a question. My name is Vidushi, and I think I speak on behalf of everybody here. We're very honored to have you amongst us today. Ma'am, since you are an entrepreneur yourself, I started a social organization, and currently I'm working on a project where I'm trying to connect the plasma donors with COVID patients. And my question to you is, as an entrepreneur, what do you feel are the challenges that are particularly faced by a woman entrepreneur? And secondly, out of this list of words that are there, what do you feel are the 3 most important to be successful in initiative, basically?
I think women still have to try harder. I think there has been in the United States a real lack of money support for women's businesses, which is turning around right now. I hope it's not the same disparity in India, but about 2% of all venture capital goes to women-led operations. I think you have to go farther in what you're trying to do, and you need to be able to demonstrate your idea, because men and women think differently, and it's just a fact. And when I first started in business, they tried to tell women to wear bow ties and navy blue because it was a sincere color, and to talk like men. And the thing is, you can only be Vidushi. You cannot be not cool. You just have to be yourself. But you have to be better prepared. Now, there are lots of things. I'm vice chairman of Vital Voices, and so check it out. Jamshed will give you my email if you want to have me connect you to Vital Voices. Vital Voices does a lot of work in India, and we have many programs for women, and the programs are fantastic. And so I hope you'll take advantage of that.
Ma'am, Inam here. I had a question.
Where are you? Let me see.
I wish I could switch on my video, but there have been some connectivity issues. Yeah, I had a question. You've mentioned on the list that you are only creative, that people recognize you also as creative. I just want to understand the brain synaptics within your head, like as to how do they function when you're actually producing something creative.
Wow. Are you a cognitive scientist? What's your field?
Not at all. I'm a law student.
Aha.
Yeah.
I
Because
don't know.
creativity as a word is very abstract. So just want to understand as to how does that come into being, like for you when you're actually producing something creative.
Well, for me, creative is applied to just about every field. So human resources is creative to me. You know, doing a business plan is creative. The only thing that's not creative is accounting. And so I think I would answer your question, and then I'm going to go to Jamshed and see if he has a better answer. But I have a very high tolerance for ambiguity, and I am able to listen and suspend my disbelief without shutting down an idea. It's kind of like an improvisational comedian, where you get given something, you have to, I really recommend, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, by the way, take a course in improv, because whatever you get from your audience, try to turn it around and make it into something more. But I just, you know, to me, when I've been accused of only being creative, I am only creative, but I apply it to everything. So I just am not very good at, I've always surrounded myself with people who can tell me how bad my ideas are, because I think that, you know, my run rate is like 95% stupid ideas and 5% brilliant ideas. And the problem is you just don't know which are the 5% that are brilliant. And so I try to surround myself with people who think very differently from me. Like, for instance, you know, my favorite lawyer that I ever worked with was just so dedicated to helping me not do stupid things. And that relationship was incredibly important because, you know, I get excited about a lot of things, and some things are not worth getting excited by. Some things by the next morning sound stupid even to me. Jamshed, do you want to give a better answer?
No, you gave a great answer. We are, as a new university, and the Daksha Fellowship, you know, is linked to Sai University as a brand new university. Creativity is certainly one of the things we want to stress. Students, particularly in India, have been told what to think, how to think, and unfortunately most of that is obsolete, and we want to encourage the next generation to think independently and to challenge orthodoxy, but to do so with good information. As you said, go to the source, good evidence, good argument, and as you said brilliantly, the students actually know better. They have a better feel for what the future should be than we do. And so instead of trying to shove things down their throats, we should simply give them the tools to express their own creativity. So thank you, Jerry.
Well, I feel like I'm just getting to know you guys, and I'm sorry we only get an hour, but please invite me back.
We will invite you back again and again, as often as you care to, and that's the silver lining of the pandemic and the lockdowns, is that it's so easy to connect now. And then Neha, what is the timing like? You want to take over and
So,
coordinate?
so Jerry, we are just about on the clock. It's about to be 6:30 now. But if you are okay for another 2 minutes or a couple of minutes, actually, there are two students who have raised their hands. Probably they have some quick questions. Would you be okay with them, or we can hold them for the next session?
No, please.
Ankur, would you like to to ask a question, please?
Whoops.
Ankur, you have to
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, hi. I actually had raised my hand earlier for something that ma'am had asked, but it's not a question, so sorry about that.
Okay. Anyone else who has a question, please feel free to jump in.
Yes, I do.
I'd like to go.
Good evening, ma'am. First of all, thank you so much for interacting with us. It was wonderful. It's always great to read about and listen to women who are leaders in their respective fields, such as yourself. Ma'am, you gave us a lot of wonderful insights today. But one thing that really struck a chord with me was when you said you're ruthlessly kind. Because it's often a notion that it's not possible to be successful and kind at the same time. Especially for women. And again, you had mentioned a point that the points that women make 3 times are immediately heard when men make it just once. So I just want to ask you, how do you suggest that we strike the right balance? Because I'm sure it's difficult to be motivated to put across your points, to put across what you feel, despite being attempted to shut down every other day. So I just want to know, what advice would you give us on striking the right balance between being assertive but not arrogant?
Well, being assertive is important for everybody. And that means being direct, honest, transparent, and clear. And being aggressive is just being kind of bullyish and full of it. I find most aggressive behavior is not backed up with good reason. It's just frustration or feeling of inadequacy. So whenever you feel yourself getting aggressive, calm yourself down, take 3 deep breaths, and don't lose your cool. Being ruthlessly kind is, I believe, what goes around comes around. So if you are looking out for others, they will look out for you. And that is what you need to do. And then you need to talk about it. I mean, you guys are going through an innovative experimental program. I don't know if you call it experimental, Jamshed, but this could be a model for India, which is so cool. You guys have to be tight. The men need to support the women need to support the men. You need to prove that men and women can love each other's brains. You guys, you know that women drive you crazy, that we go from subject to subject. But if you have a strategic plan that you're working on, make sure you have a woman working with you, because we have an ailment which is called more prefrontal cortex. We have 12% more you have bigger brains. We have 12% more prefrontal cortex, which means we have all these open envelopes at all times. And if you're doing a strategic plan, you need to be thinking about what are the market conditions, where are consumers, where is the world going, what is the supply chain? You have to have all these things in your head. On the other hand, men are way better at, these are gross generalizations. John said we probably wish we hadn't had the extra 2 minutes. But men can lead the fight. They can do the editing and not hear all these voices, but trust your friends, trust your female friends to worry about the margins and about the essence. And I just hope that you will add in your experience. I hope that each one of you will have a best group of friends that's diverse in thinking. And I also recommend that you actually take some tests to know more about yourself. And my favorite test is the caliper test. I don't know if you can get your hands on it, Jamshed, but I really, how many students are there?
Close to 70.
Yeah, 70. Imagine if you assessed the natural way people think and perform. My creative human resources, just to go back to that, I was trained as an open classroom teacher, which means it's all about individual instruction. So when I was an open classroom teacher, I had to know each kid and how they preferred to learn. When I went into management, it was the same challenge. It was, okay, Scott Webb is really fantastic at this, and he is really terrible at that. Let's have 80% of his time on the stuff he's really fantastic at. And that's how you get people to be more productive, is by knowing. Some of you, I think each and every one of you has something that you're really extraordinary at, that you don't give yourself credit for, that you don't even know, and you spend your time working on the stuff you're not very good at because you want to remediate yourself. Stop it. Get to know yourself. See where you shine and focus on your strengths. I think that's really my message for you today. But when I come back, I want to know that each and every one of you has made a really close friend who thinks very differently.
Neha, I think there's continuing interest. So if you can go over time, I'm sure that Jerry is willing to.
Jerry, if you're willing to, I'm sure the students are more than enthused to be just talking to you. They are posting questions after questions, and they're requesting for some time with you. Is that okay? We can go on for a bit?
Yeah.
Would you have some time? So, okay, Dhruv, would you like to take a question, please?
Yeah, I'll do that. Hi, ma'am. My name is Dhruv, and my question to you relates to your time while heading a major network like be it Disney, ABC, or prior to that Nickelodeon. What do you see the role of corporation when it comes to dealing with issues of social activism? And I ask this not just in wake of the recent spate of protests or the actions done by a lot of corporate entities post the murder of George Floyd, but as generally somebody who was handling things such as kids programming, and I was a major fan of this show as a kid called as Hey Arnold, which I found to be very interesting and ahead of its time in terms of what it projected. I mean, like, how do you reconcile these issues, and how do you determine exactly what issues really need to be put out there as somebody who's heading a media network? Thank you.
Well, I think there's a lot of phony stuff going on right now with corporations putting out letters saying they're this and that. And the truth is, they're not very good at getting diverse people to the top of their companies. And, I've been on technology boards like Symantec and Electronic Arts, and they only have like 20% women. They'll have 5% people of color, and they just don't focus on it. And now with something like George Floyd, when they put out these announcements about how important diversity is, it's a little rings a little hollow for me. When I was at Nickelodeon, we were social activists. So we always had special programs for kids. We had a thing called the Big Help, which was teaching. We wanted to be an advocate for kids with the, whoops, come here, come see everybody. Otis is all about Otis, and he feels like he gave up an hour to you guys, and now what's in it for him? But we did the Big Help because we wanted to represent to the world that kids are helpful. And we put out an initiative. We advertised ways that kids could be helpful. We connected them to organizations in their community. We had telethons, and kids volunteered their time. The first year, 100 million hours. So I believe that there are ways for networks to really take it seriously. But for corporations, I don't know what's going to happen. I actually believe small is beautiful. And, you know, we do need to, the United States especially needs to deal with its racist history. And we have not owned it, and we have not dealt with it. And we have two parties in our country that are now kind of forming around racial issues, and it's horrifying to me. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that's my frank assessment. Now, there are companies like PayPal. PayPal has just given $500 million to Black entrepreneurs in inner cities. Okay, that's good. $500 million, that's good. That's real. But, you know, doing a letter in the New York Times doesn't do it for me.
All right, ma'am. Thank you.
Anicham, do you want to ask your question yourself?
Yeah. Hi, ma'am. I'm so happy to have you here and have this talk happen, because Nickelodeon was like a big part of my childhood, and Drake and Josh was like the pinnacle of like my childhood entertainment. And one thing that I wanted to ask you was, at what point in your career or your life were you called a failure, and how did you get past that and navigate that feeling?
I'm sorry, what was the feeling?
When like failure, and at what point, and how were you able to navigate through that?
Somehow, every time you say the word, there's a clink.
Failure. When did you feel like a failure, and how did you navigate that?
Oh my God. I think the best example of that was well, I'll tell you two examples, one at Nickelodeon and one at Oxygen. So at Nickelodeon, I had this idea that we would do a comedy block in the afternoon that would be comedy clips of things that we got from around the world, and it was called Turkey TV. And I promised my boss that this was going to revolutionize kids TV. He was the head of MTV. And the weekend that the first episode arrived, I put it in then we had these cassettes, which we no longer have. I put it in the player, and my family, my son was 10, my daughter was 13. We sat down to watch. And at the end of it, my legs were paralyzed. It was the worst show I had ever seen. And my son started to weep. And he said, "Mom, you're never going to work in television ever again." And I really couldn't speak. But I called our executive producer and I said, "We have to all go to the office. We have to figure out, we have till Tuesday." This was Memorial Day weekend, so this was a Friday. Everybody stayed all through 4 days. We edited it. We got it to a shape that wouldn't embarrass us. But I really lost a lot of confidence. And so what I did was I fired myself as the executive producer. And I went to my boss and I told him how bad it was and what a disappointment it was. And I couldn't get over it. I kept saying how awful it was and how terrible a job I had done. And he finally said, "Get over it. Good for you. You made a mistake and it's a flop, go on to the next thing. And that was very good. At Oxygen, when we went on the air, we had, because we came into being in such a short period of time, we couldn't license any existing shows. We had to be all original. And you can't go from no shows to 100% original and be watchable. And I knew that, you know, there was all this positive press building us up. And I knew when we premiered that it was going to be terrible. And because my team was a very collaborative team and everybody, you know, was hooked on the idea of giving this fresh voice to women, they were incredibly upset. And people would say to them, if they saw them on the street, well, you're going to be out of a job. This is, you know, the press descended on us. It was horrible. And so one day I turned to my assistant, Ed, and I said, okay, Ed, we had meetings every 4 to 6 weeks that were basically like show and tell meetings, just to keep everybody's spirit up. And I said, Ed, what do people want to know? And he said, they want to know what to say when they're at a cocktail party and somebody says you're not going to have a job. So we created a character that I played who was called Ethel Ann, and Ed just was himself. And we would start the meeting as me attacking Ed and saying all the horrible things that were being said about Oxygen. So everybody in the staff knew that I didn't have my head in the sand. I knew what was facing them. And then Ed would just improvise and answer. And we did it for 3 meetings. And then when we got into having real cocktails and hot dogs, it was not good. So we stopped doing it. But one of the things about failure is it's fantastic. You learn so much more when you flop. It's just much easier to flop like we did with Nickelodeon when the press didn't expect anything from us. It was much harder when there were high expectations. So embrace failure. I get a big fat smile on my face when we start analyzing why something didn't work, because that is a high learning point. I think I'm losing my voice, you guys. Let's come back another day.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Jamshed, would you like to?
Well, Jerry, on behalf of all of our students and faculty also who are present, thank you so much. I think you've had a huge impact already, and that was the purpose of this. We want this to be the most innovative program in India and possibly in the world. These are our pioneering students, and I can see from their questions and their facial expressions that you've really inspired them. So we will definitely take you up on bringing you back. And once you recover your voice, so we'll give you 24 hours to recover your voice, and then
well,
so
I can't wait to see you again, and I really can't wait to see you in person.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you so much.